Before we begin, a quick word. If this channel can hit 5,000 subscribers by July, I'll make a video about the Kingdom Keepers book series, so if you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed. Thank you so much, and please enjoy the video. Talked ad nauseum about the bride from the Haunted Mansion. She's one of the most iconic and striking images of the entire attraction, and when someone even mentions the mansion, she's probably one of the first things they think of. But we're not going to talk about her today. Instead, we'll be looking at her better half. Or should I say, better halves. When the bride's true nature was revealed, we learned of her 5 unfortunate husbands. Much has been said about Constance, but not so much for her beaux. So why not give them a moment in the sun? Who were these men? How did they relate to the mansion? Were these truly marriages for her convenience, or was there love? Please remain seated in your doom buggy as we figure that out together. As a part of the 2006 refurbishment of the American mansions, the bride's backstory was expanded upon, and she was given a personality and a name. Alongside this expansion, we were finally given the names and faces of the men she married. For the record, the old attic bride didn't have a husband to speak of. Sometimes they hinted at one, but it was nothing this explicit. The ride doesn't tell us too much about them, save for some hints in the scenery, but quite a bit of stuff directly from Disney has. So, let's go through them all one by one. In 1869, Constance Hatchaway married her first husband, Ambrose Harper. Ambrose was a naive but good-natured man, hailing from a well-off family of farmers. Looking at his portrait, he is rather innocent-looking with that awkward expression on his face. And for a wedding, they both look rather unhappy. This might not mean anything, early photography took forever and holding happy smiles was hard. But it might imply that this wasn't really what they wanted. Was it arranged? Was it something they instantly regretted? We don't really know more than that, so all we can do is speculate. Ambrose might be a nice guy, but he is a little plain. He has a funny-looking bowler hat and an old suit that doesn't really fit right. He's like the other man in a rom-com, the one the leading lady would leave in favor of the protagonist. It does make Constance's motives a little clear from the start. She wasn't really interested in the man. A quiet life on the farm wasn't going to satisfy her. She wanted more. With easy access to wealth, he was no longer needed, and... In 1872, husband number 2 came along, Frank Banks. Now, this man was a bit more prestigious. As his name would suggest, Frank was a banker, and a revered one at that, a pillar of his community. What would you expect from someone who looks like the Monopoly man? Yeah, it's a no-brainer why Constance would go for him. The decorations for their wedding are certainly fancier than the ones from Ambrose. In their wedding photo, the couple doesn't look quite as dead-faced as the last one. Though it would not last, as Frank befell a fate similar to Ambrose's. In 1874, Constance married a man known as the Marquis de Doom. A marquis, for those of you who don't know, is a nobleman. Doom, in particular, was a foreign diplomat, and judging by his portrait, a military man. According to the wedding certificate in the attic, he's also Chinese, making him one of the only canonical Asian characters in the ride. Frank might have been rich, but he was only known in his community. The Marquis had something else: prestige. You can be as rich as you very well please, but that prestige is even more alluring. Constance was marrying into nobility. Is it a wonder why she's finally smiling? Though the Marquis might perhaps be the most unlucky of them all. We don't have dates for the deaths of her husbands. They could have been married for days, months, or even years before she offed them. The Ghost Post gave us the specific dates for Doom. Constance and the Marquis were wed on February 13th of 1874. The Marquis died 1 day later, February 14th. Valentine's Day. Ouch. Constance remained a thrice-made widow for another year before she wed again. At this point, I'd get a little suspicious. 1 husband dies, normal. 2 husbands, tragic coincidence. By the 3rd, I'd start thinking that maybe she's the problem. Husband number 4 was Reginald Kane, the rotund gentleman you're looking at now. Reginald was a railroad baron, celebrated all over for his contributions to the industry. If one needed a sign of her social climb, just look at what he's wearing. The fancy shirt, the cane, that huge ring on his finger. Reggie was not shy about his status. Sure, he was a gambler and a glutton. His bio literally calls him a world-renowned gourmand. But who cares when he's that rich? Though all the money in the world won't save you from an axe-crazy gold digger. This is why you should pay your taxes, rich people, so you won't attract people like this. Husband number 5 was a man named George, and he deserves his own video, so we'll be getting to him another day. So, you have 5 husbands who died by their wife's hand. One would suspect that they held a grudge against her. You wouldn't blame him. However, some evidence points to the contrary. I mentioned the wedding invite the ghost post sent out earlier in this video. If you scanned it with a phone app, you got some dialogue between the hitchhiking ghosts about Constance. They had this to say about her marriages.
Well, come on, think about it. How many husbands does she get rid of?
Chuck, chuck, chuck. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was 5.
Yeah, and even after she did them in, they're all still in love with her. Oh.
Right.
If you didn't catch that, despite everything that had happened, despite having their lives prematurely ended by a murderous gold digger, they still loved her. Murder isn't a big deal for them. They love her in spite of it. But what about Constance? Were they just a means to an end for her? I'm not sure. She seems totally fine with her murders and doesn't regret it at all. She propositions incoming guests to be her next husband. All of it just rolled off her back. But she kept all their things, so maybe they weren't totally disposable to her. The ghost post, once again, gives us a hint. In the Grim Gazette, one of the banshees in the ballroom writes to Aunt Agony, who you know is Constance if you watch my bride video, asking how to cope with her lost husband. Agony replies with sympathy, saying that it's normal. After all, she mourned all of her husbands. Odd behavior for someone who used her partners to get rich quick. Either she's continuing the act long past the point where it matters, she's dead, there's no ghost cops, and the column is anonymous, or she had a little bit of affection for them. Even just the tiniest bit. It's beautiful in a kind of morbid way. As far as other media goes, the husbands are mostly reduced to cameo appearances, or a passing mention. They all seem to be in on Constance's attic scenes in the Tales from the Haunted Mansion books, with their portraits going along with her attempts to scare the main character. The Marvel comic featured them posthumously in a flashback, as Constance was getting ready to marry another guy. But that wedding never happened. Husband number 6 ended up doing her in. And she wasn't doing it for monetary gain, she just likes weddings. If you watch my video on the Lost Haunted Mansion video game, you'll know that the grooms have a fairly prominent role in the gameplay. They're scattered in 5 of the levels, and you have to rescue them from their bride. When you go up and talk to them, you get a little more insight on their histories. Ambrose talks about his family's farm. Frank, it turns out, is actually the guy stuck in the coffin. And their illustrations imply that they didn't all die from beheading. George got an axe in the head, Ambrose drowned, the Marquis got an arrow in the head, Frank was hanged, Reginald appears to be the only one that was actually decapitated. To repeat a point I brought up in the video, it's fascinating that this obscure web game includes important story elements that I'm sure lots of Mansion fans would want to know about. All of them appeared in the Muppets Haunted Mansion special on Disney+. And they weren't just generic old-timey guys. Each of the Muppets are supposed to be a specific husband. Walter is Ambrose, Beauregard is George, Johnny is Reginald, Lou is Frank, the Penguin is the Marquis, and Sal is just there for moral support, I guess. Like in the web game, they were often different ways. You hear some of them in the Tie the Knot Tango song. And yes, Pepe nearly became husband number 6, but Gonzo saved him before he could. And Constance seemed pretty torn up about it, so maybe she does love them all after all. Going over every other husband of the Haunted Mansion seems a little redundant to me. This isn't like the Bride videos where I cover the evolution of a character over a period of time. The groom has never had much of a presence in the ride. He didn't really exist until the refurb. So, I think we'll conclude the video here. Don't worry about George. Like I said, his time will come eventually. But for now, please sit back in your doom buggy and we will proceed in the next video. Thanks for watching.